National Signing Day tomorrow. This used to be in February, but now it's in December, just a few days before Christmas, which I'm still getting used to. Mike Scarborough is familiar with the drill, though, for TigerBait.com. Mike, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. Yeah, it is very different. In fact, obviously it's not the same as back in the days of the bash in February and being a huge, huge thing. But these things continue to have new wrinkles added to it every year, and it won't end tomorrow because you got Ricks that'll go down on Thursday. But I think sometimes the kids who go the longest or do something oddball, or maybe kind of give you an idea of what you might be in for in the future. Eli Ricks did his at 2:00 on Christmas Day, right when my mom was at the front door.
I do remember that. There are two things I had to work on a Christmas Day. Well, not that I had to work with Eli Ricks, but I got that text. The other one was when Nick Saban decided to go to the Dolphins, and we had to, all afternoon. It's like, when's the press conference? When's the press conference?
So then the next question is, what if they were simultaneous? My mom knocking at the door, and Eli Ricks announcing his commitment. What do you think I did first?
You better answer the
Open
door.
Open the door, or got the commitment story up?
You better open the door and say, "Mom, there's the wine, there's the cheese and crackers. Occupy yourself for a few minutes. I'll be right back." One of those deals.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning, Mike. 25 commitments on the board right now. Do you expect that all of these guys are going to sign tomorrow, or is there some that you're monitoring? Like, well, of those 25 hard commitments, there's a few that might not.
Well, I think the one that we're really still paying attention to is Dalen Austin out in California. The Oregon rumors have been out there for weeks. USC rumors out there. He's a kid who really, in fact, I went back and looked at some of my DMs with him. See, the last time we had any correspondence, he's been off the map for months, and I think he's been like that with most people in the media. And I get it, but that's the one I think that to watch. But when you look at what LSU is doing at the defensive back position, they're really bringing in some numbers, and not to say that wouldn't be a loss if he were to flip. But I think LSU can absorb it.
Let me see if I can connect the dots here, and you can tell me no, one's got nothing to do with the other. But Ricks is committing on Thursday. He's going to sign on Thursday. Does that have anything to do with Austin, or is this just a pure West Coast thing, and he wants to stay closer to home?
I think it could be a West Coast thing. It could be super NIL money. We'll see.
Okay.
In Austin's case.
All right. And anybody else that you're concerned about or that, may have made a decision that's just not public yet that you might not expect to see signed tomorrow?
I think maybe there's a few out there, but nobody that I'm thinking isn't likely to sign.
So Austin is the one guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Then let's talk about potential ads tomorrow before we get to what happens on Thursday. Decisions coming down tomorrow that could add to this class before we get to Thursday.
Well, obviously, Isaac Smith from, Fulton, Mississippi at Owama, the safety that was in this week, and I think his visit went extremely well. Like Ricks, we've had a prediction for him on Tiger Bait for probably over a month or right at a month. I think you always are a little skeptical of Mississippi kids. You know it. No matter how bad Mississippi State or Ole Miss might be, it's always a tricky deal to get kids, particularly out of the northern part of the state. But I think this one's a different animal. I also will say I think there's some normal rules that have kind of been consistent through Saban, Miles, Orgeron, that might be, some of those might be going by the wayside with Kelly and his staff, and maybe this is one of them. We'll see.
When you say rules, give me an example.
Well, just the norms, that when it comes to Mississippi recruits, if they're not from the south of Jackson or in a Mississippi private school league like Stephen Ridley, or from Long Beach or Biloxi, like the Dixon brothers and Miles Brennan, then you're probably going to have a tough time if they're from the northern part of the state.
And well, I can speak to Richard Dixon's recruitment because he's talked about it on the air with us. I mean, his family has got Ole Miss and Mississippi ties, but he was coming to LSU. But I understand what you're saying for sure, Mike. So let's get to Thursday then, and where are you on Desmond Ricks?
I think LSU's a school. I know a lot of people think that there's other schools lurking, and the NIL deals could get crazy, but I haven't heard anything that has me backing off thinking that it's not gonna be LSU.
Okay. So then, who else? Once we get past signing date, are they still waiting on?
Well, then you start looking at the transfer portal kids. I mean, there's the Jalen Lee rumors out there. Former Live Oak defensive tackle that signed with Florida, class of 20. Of course, he was an LSU commitment at one time. Orgeron and staff went in a different direction on him. And, something could be brewing there. I think the defensive ends that were on campus this weekend, I think, both those kids, I think, getting very positive vibes. Do both of them choose LSU? We'll see, but it's I talked to Swenson's mom, Braden Swenson, the defensive end from Oregon's mom last night, and she said she was with her son on the visit and said the trip was amazing and the decision would be coming ASAP. So if a decision's coming ASAP and it was amazing, who else is in the mix?
Well, it's
snuck in there in between. I mean, we're in a dead period right now.
I remember the old days with the dead period where they would just stash kids where they couldn't get to a phone. And I'm not kidding. Stash kids at a hunting camp or something where there was no phone, and this was before cell phones. So, thankfully, we're past all of that.
Well, I think what's obviously when you look at some of the offers that have gone out to portal kids, a huge number of defensive ends, edge rushers, tackles. In Jalen Lee's case, I think he's a guy they think can give a couple of dozen plays a game, rotate in, and so Kelly made kind of off my question on Saturday. He kind of when I said, "What do you think when the dust settles? Your haul is going to be between high school signees and transfer portal?" When he said the number could hit 38, that's pretty substantial, and I think the vast majority of those are going to be your transfer portal kids versus high school signees.
28-10, maybe something like that. 28 high school kids.
That probably looks right to me.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, of course, Aaron Anderson. I mean, that's just huge. Getting Aaron Anderson, that's basically like getting a high school signing.
It is.
A 5-star.
Yeah, and it solves one of your biggest. Well, I hope it solves one of their biggest needs, which is to find a punt returner. If he doesn't do anything else but that, it would be a huge upgrade.
Well, and here's the other part of it. I know he says he wants to build his program through high school signees, and no doubt about it. But look, you can look at Louisiana for next year and see where there's gaps at different positions. There's from one year to the next. There's one position that's an embarrassment of riches, like running back this year. And then you're looking at next year and you're saying, well, who's the class of 24 running back in the state of Louisiana? Well, is that a deal where because maybe there's not a prize running back that you can maybe extract from out of state high school kid, that maybe that's the year where you go to the portal? He says the portal numbers are not going to be as big going forward. But I wonder if maybe they're going to be bigger than he thinks over time because, in reality, what are you better off with if you're late in the recruiting process, getting a 3-star defensive tackle that needs a lot of work, or going and getting one that's got several years of experience in major college football?
I don't know if it's going to
has a couple of years of eligibility left.
I don't know if it's going to be a direct correlation every single year, but my guess is that the more successful you are, the less you're going to have to depend on the portal. That now I could be completely wrong about that, 3 years from now, because you could have a bunch of 5 stars that don't get on the field right away and they could transfer out like what has happened a little bit at Texas A&M.
I just think I think regardless of how well you recruit the high school level, you're always going to have second and third teamers.
Yeah, look, you got 85 scholarships and you got 22 spots where you can start. That's just the numbers or what they are.
But I mean, so what is that total over a 2-year period? It's like 50 new faces. If that when that number comes to fruition, I mean that is crazy.
I can tell you what in my head what I've got is a kind of a great model, and I don't know if it's going to work out this way, but the very best recruiters prior to the current format would always take 1 or 2 junior college players. You could tell the teams that were desperate, they'd take 10 or 12. And the really good programs, when they were humming along, would fill in with, they would lose a prospect, would either transfer out, which was more rare, or they get an injury, or they just wouldn't pan out, and they'd say, you know what, we need a corner. The corner that we took 2 years ago is supposed to be an upperclassman now. He didn't pan out. He got hurt. He transferred out, whatever. Then go get a junior college kid. If you were getting 2, maybe 3 junior college kids a year, you were doing really well. That meant your program was on solid footing. And if you were taking 10 or 12, it meant that you had massive turnover and it was harder to sustain success. In my head, that's the way I think of the transfer portal. I look at what Georgia's doing. Georgia has 1 person, I think, in the transfer portal, or took 1 person in the transfer portal. In a perfect world, that's what it looks like. But you got to get to that point.
Yeah, but does their number look different come January?
Well, I'm sure it will. I'm sure that it will. Mike, before we let you go, anybody that we know is definitely not signing tomorrow or in the signing period that is of direct prominence to LSU?
Yeah, I'm still reaching out to some kids. I haven't seen where that's going to be a number. Typically these kids are not playing that game. And when you've got, close to a dozen, I think the last count I had was 12, maybe 13 kids who are midterm grads and going to be there in spring. So that there really isn't a whole lot of options for kids to, and if they don't sign tomorrow, that doesn't mean they're not going to sign before the early period ends. But I think it's going to be even, like it was under Orgeron, where almost the entire class is done before Christmas.
Yeah, that was what this was put into.
Had committed. There's not being any stragglers.
Yeah, that was what this was put into place for, so that you could wrap this up, and the kids wouldn't have to worry about continuing to be recruited, and the coaches wouldn't have to worry about keeping their roster spots open until February.
Yeah, I mean, but there's always one kid where mom didn't get off her shift and couldn't sign the paperwork, and it'll be sent in the next morning. I mean, that stuff happens.
Sure. All right, tigerbait.com, signing day tomorrow. Be a busy day for you. No, Mike, we always appreciate the time, and have a great holiday.
You too. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Don't forget to open the door for mom. It doesn't matter who's signing.